you work full-time for the Salt Lake Climbers Alliance as both an advocacy coordinator and an anchor maintenance coordinator. Like, walk me through what that means, and like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah. So it's essentially two hats. The anchor maintenance coordinator part of my job really picks up in the summer when doing like anchor maintenance, and then in the winter it's kind of more like back end stuff. So with the anchor maintenance coordinator gig, working with the Salt Lake Climbers Alliance, it's me and 5 other anchor techs, and we have a professional anchor maintenance program. And essentially from April to early November, we're going out every other week essentially and rebolting routes in the Wasatch Range outside of Salt Lake City. So Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, going out to a zone and purely devoting that time to rebolt. And so managing the crew's supplies, working with land managers, trying to talk to first ascensionists, working with the community to get ideas on where to go, and then implementing that stuff, and then also documenting. So making sure that if like someone later down the road is like, hey, what did you do on X, Y, and Z route? I can go back. This is what was here. This is what we replaced it with. And also documenting adhesive. So kind of the common thing we do is rebolting with glue-ins. Kind of that's where we're going a little bit more with, especially like popular sport routes. So if like DeWalt, the manufacturer of the adhesive we uses, comes back and say, hey, like batch like 048, we found to be, there's some failures. Like I know exactly what routes have that batch that we replace. And so we can then go and do some like quality control or damage control with that. So kind of in between the weeks and doing a lot of documentation and writing recaps. And then in the winter months, working with land managers, getting our permits together, supplies, and then just kind of like back-end policy work with the whole bolt world. And then the advocacy coordinator hat, doing a lot of like trail work projects, stewardship projects, lining up access funds, conservation crew to come out, and different local stewardship trail projects. And then just, again, working with land managers on access, and occasionally going to Washington, D.C., kind of things like that. So I'm always putting one hat on, taking the hat off, but it's all kind of one.
Is there like a hierarchy to the team, or are you like is there like a person in charge? How does that work?
Yeah. So there's Julia Geisler. She's the executive director. She's been at the helm for like 15-ish years.
So the SLCA has been in effect for 15 years?
Since 2002.
Oh, wow.
And then she was hired on as part-time and then full-time. And then after doing everything herself and having a lot of volunteers, kind of like, let's start building up the organization.
Wow.
And so that's kind of like a natural progression for a lot of local climbing organizations. And they'll kind of say LCOs as like the acronym for that. But you have a lot of volunteer, and then they're like, this is too much work. We bring in someone part-time, and then it kind of grows from there.
Where does the funding come from?
Combination from private donors, community. We have a joint partnership with the Access Fund, so it's like their joint membership program. If you donate to the SLCA and Access Fund, like we all both kind of get a cut of that. We have our own membership program. A lot of the funding for projects come through grants. The state of Utah has an Office of Outdoor Recreation, and so they have millions of dollars that they hand out throughout the state for infrastructure, recreation. So they see the value of improving recreation infrastructure. And so we luckily get grants through them, and then other organizations, corporate sponsors.
Who's handling like the fund acquisition and disbursement, and like I would imagine there's an element of marketing or PR, like whose hat is that?
Yeah. So like kind of the fun stuff is our executive director, and then we just hired a new communications and events coordinator. So that's kind of like their realm. of like the marketing side of things, and then I'm definitely helping out in the back end. Just trying to, the climbing environment is always changing. I think the economy's hard. A lot of brands are struggling, especially with the tariffs. They're forking out millions of dollars, given that like Black Diamond has kind of moved a lot of their operations overseas. And so Black Diamond's in our backyard, and so, trying to work with these brands to contribute to their backyard, it's just getting smaller and smaller, and so it's kind of a struggle.
How much of a pulse do you actually have on the real effects that these companies are going through? Because I think it's like, so far I've heard exactly what you've said, right? Like tariffs are hurting companies. Like these companies are definitely, like the economy's pretty tough. Like, do you understand the actual landscape of like what these companies are actually going through? And like, have they gotten like bloated during COVID and now they're like freaking out because like the people are like, has there been any greed in the companies at all, like prior to this, and now they're having to like fight restructuring, or like, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, like my 2 cents, and just as an observer, it seemed like COVID, it was definitely got bloated, got psyched, maybe started overspending, started hiring a lot, and now it's like we gotta trim the fat. And I know it just seems like things are harder, and they don't have as much money to throw around, and have to be very reliable on their marketing team and like what's success these days. And I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I've heard of like athlete programs getting halted, people getting like essentially dropped from teams, like a lot of trimming of the fat, like you said.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of more focus, at least from my perspective, is more like influencers.
People who actually have ROI.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. And like one thing we've been trying to like grapple with is like we have a pretty big following on social media. It's like around 15,000, and I think for like a climbing nonprofit, that's pretty darn good.
I would say like I've been running my channel for a while, and I feel like especially in the western side of America, I feel like there's, I don't know, maybe like 20, 30,000 Instagram users that are like climbers. That's probably it. I don't think it's as big as people think it is.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot less of us than we think.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And like with that, and we've been trying to grapple of like, can we kind of use our platform as like a micro influencer in like the stewardship space, and like work with brands and that of like carrying the responsible way, doing these stewardship projects the responsible way, rather than just like going out and doing it alone, like working with land managers and having these bigger conversations.
How's that been going?
I mean, it's new this year. We've been pitching it. People have been like, this is interesting. We appreciate the creativity, but no one's quite bitten yet.
Yeah. I've definitely heard that like people are using, at least people here, like LCOs out here have been using your LCO as like an anchor to like, or like an idol or something that people want to strive to be. Like you guys are like the example of what a lot of LCOs are trying to accomplish, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. We appreciate that. Julia's done a great job. She's been at the helm, and I've learned so much from her. It's an interesting space.
Yeah, for sure. A little bit more on kind of your accolades or your skill sets. Talk to me about the process of getting is it SPRAT? Is that the acronym?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about the process. What skills do you actually have to have?
Yeah. So, SPRAT, I might butcher this. It's been a while. Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians, something along those lines. And so like essentially rope access, it's a way to get to work, and the use of ropes and workout heights essentially. And so I kind of got to a point in my life where I'm like, hey, this seems like an interesting thing. I work a lot, and then I have a lot of time off. I like being on ropes. I've tend to be blue collar my whole life. So I reached out to a company in Santa Cruz called Rope Partner. I believe they're in Colorado now. And they offer a SPRAT Level 1. And they also employ people. So I'm like, oh, maybe if I get my SPRAT level 1 through these people, I can meet everybody in the office and apply. And so I went out to Santa Cruz, got my level 1 SPRAT, and I applied to work at this company, Rebolting, who's essentially worked on wind farms doing wind turbine maintenance. So we'd go up the tower, rappel down, and do fiberglass work on the tower.
How sick was that?
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
I heard it pays well too.
What's that?
I heard it pays well too.
Yeah, I mean, and for like in my mid-20s, it paid really well. Like a lot of overtime, per diems, hotels paid for, travels paid for, and all you're doing is work in these spots.
For someone, so real quick, for someone listening who like is interested in like, someone just heard that like windmill, like rappelling into windmills and doing fiberglass work, man, like I've been searching for some way to explore my skills as a climber and you know, use it for money. I think like obviously the main path people think of immediately is like guiding, right? I want to climb all the time, like, but now there's like this other avenue. What would you recommend people to do? Like, where can they search for getting their SPRAT level 1, and how can you like transfer that into actually having a job? Is it like connections? Is it easy to apply? Like,
yeah. You know, it's been a while since I've gone through that, but I would definitely research companies that offer the certification, but they also employ, where you can kind of have that face-to-face with the potential employer. But like the one thing that really struck me with Rope Partner is that they presented themselves as like, you know, we work hard and we play hard, and like there's climbers, there's rafters, and it was this like collection of outdoor people. And so that would be my thing. That would be my suggestion. There's also another certification called IRATA, which is more of an international thing. So that's recognized over in Europe and like over in over in Europe and like the Middle East. And so SPRAT's kind of like the US thing.
Does IRATA still apply here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It tends to be a little bit more stringent. And so if you're like, I want to work on oil rigs in the middle of the ocean over in the who knows where, like that, like IRATA is kind of your thing. But if you just want to work in the States, you know, SPRAT is perfectly fine. Kind of a little expensive to get into it, but it pays off.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think everyone's like, oh, college is expensive. And, you know, they start to talk about trade stuff. It's like, oh, it's like $1,000. It's like, dude, like, do you want $40,000 in debt, or do you want to spend a couple grand on a trade skill and like get money right away?
100%. Yeah. And so like kind of like the process, like you get your cert, you work X amount of hours, and then you can apply to get your level 2. Then you go through level 2, works X amount of hours, and you can get your level 3. And there's different responsibilities kind of through within all that. But essentially like a level 3, you can like manage teams. Where like a level 2, you can manage your group, but then there's a level 3 on site, kind of overseeing the whole project.
Interesting. So it's not more like a breadth of skill set. It's like, can you teach? Can you manage? Can you lead?
I mean, it's everything. Skill set. And I think like those soft skills, like that's not really taught. You kind of learn those. But a lot of it is, it's like rescues, high angle work, scenarios, kind of all that jazz.
Like if you were to pick a percentage of like, you've got like all these skill sets you've learned from SPRAT level 3, like, what percentage of that have you used in like rope access for rebolting? Like 10, 20, 30, like, is it, how basic is, I don't want to say we're basic, but yeah, like how much, what percentage are you using?
Yeah. I would say pretty low. You know, like a level 1, I'm probably using maybe 20%, 30% of a level 1. And I think what it really comes down to is like the rescue side of, if I need to rescue a coworker, that's kind of like really where it pays off.
Accessing the breadth of your skills would be like in a rescue situation.
I would say, yeah. Every once in a while we're doing like, we're moving horizontally on like bigger routes and kind of like transferring all our gear horizontally. There's a little bit of rope access there.
For people who aren't necessarily interested in turning this into a career, would you recommend like a recreational climber get SPRAT level 1 certified for their own safety?
No, I think like kind of the funny thing is with rope access, you're on some like pretty burly systems. You know, like everything is super redundant. You're on 2 ropes, so you have your main line, then you have a backup line just in case if your main working line fails. And so you're always in this like state of like everything is so backed up, you're super safe, everything's so redundant. And then like after long work weeks, I would go back and start climbing, like fiddle in a small nut, and I'm like, "Woo, like this is sketchy." You know, I wish I had 2 ropes. And so like it can kind of screw with you a little bit.
Interesting. It's like so safe that when you actually go to lead climbing trad, you're just like, this is fucked up.
Yeah. Where normally it's just like I wouldn't think anything of this.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting that it works the other way. Like you can numb yourself to risk if you're in it all the time, but then you like get desensitized to it.
Because like you're always talking risk. Like you have your safety meetings, you know, risk. You know, you go, you rig your ropes, you get on the radio with your partner. Like this is rigged, you know, this is backed up, all the things. So it's like constant, you know, OSHA's involved and you're on these wind farms. And so they're super anal about safety. And so it's just like drilled into you. And then you go out and you can do whatever the hell you want and just like run out of pitch. And you're like, ooh, I don't want to do that.
Where's my second rope? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's funky. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend. But unless if like someone's super geeky or like wants to work in SAR, I think that might be a thing.
It's cool to know though. I think that like we all are always in search of knowledge, and like at least for me, it's like hard to always just get it off of YouTube. You want something that's like real and concrete. And so you hear about these IRATA and SPRAT courses for the first time. You're like, all right, cool. Like that sounds like a good idea. So it's nice to hear. It's refreshing to hear that it's like, yeah, it's unless you're looking to get nerdy about it or maybe get into SAR, it's just like you can learn elsewhere. It seems like you started your journey, like your climbing journey specifically, like through a lens of advocacy. Like walk me through that process.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was like probably like year and a half ish into climbing when I was living in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, when I was kind of introduced to like, you know, there's more to it with the land managers in that, you know, there's a lot of private land and it's like, ooh, we can climb here, but it's kind of quiet. And kind of started to like look at this as like, okay, this is more complex. There's more to it than just like putting my crap in my backpack. School is out. Let's go climbing. And so it kind of to like it opened up my eyes a little bit more of the landscape. And as I opened up my eyes, I started to see a little bit more bits and pieces, and it started getting more complicated and more nuanced. And like I think you start seeing more trash on the ground, and more people like behaving inappropriately or being loud and rambunctious, and like, you know, dog is chasing deer and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, like, okay, you know, I'm drinking beers at the crag, having fun with my friends, but like we're kind of being a little too much. And then there's people like hiking, trying to enjoy the space, and it's like, ooh, we're being obnoxious, you know. So I think,
I mean, there's a difference there between like just being a good human and having like empathy towards people's experiences versus like maybe looking that through the lens of like, how can I affect bigger change, or like how does this affect the climbing community at large? I think that like those are two different lenses to look at that situation. So like, how did you have that kind of bigger picture? Like, did you have like a mentor or someone that taught you like the bigger picture of the effect of the climbing community at large?
yeah, I wouldn't say it was geared towards climbing, but it was a professor in college, Cheryl Teeters. I went to school for outdoor recreation. And so it was kind of, we all joked that it was more of like a philosophical degree rather than like a hard skill thing. And you know, she would talk about the outdoors in more of this philosophical approach and our impact, how we interact with the space, and also that things aren't guaranteed. And so I think that kind of zoomed me out a little bit more. And then I kind of, for like a senior project, I reached out to the outfitter out there, Downwind Sports. So I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing at this crag called Slugs Bluff, doing a cleanup. What do you think? And some people in the community were able to get me a hold of the landowner. And essentially this crag is like, people would just go to the top of it and throw crap off. There's like old cars, old rusty things. It's right next to an old copper mine, or iron mine. And so just like very like not cared for, and showed up and like, hey, I would love to clean up this place. Would be okay. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, sure, whatever. Got a hold of the access fund, had an adopt a crag, and cleaned up some stuff there. And eventually, which is kind of a cool end of the story, when that gentleman died, he left the land to his children. And the people up there now, it's the Upper Peninsula Climbers Coalition. They approached them about maybe purchasing the land. The siblings got together, and then they just gave it to the Climbing Coalition.
Whoa.
And so it's like, this little seed kind of turned into something bigger. Now they own that crag. They're the stewards. Huge success. And so I think that's really seeded a lot. Just that little working with this landowner, doing a little cleanup, getting a hold of the access fund. And now looking back, like now they own this crag.
Yeah. That's wild. It's probably not a common story to just like have land acquisition like that. Yeah. But a really good reminder, and just like such a cool foundational memory for you of just like the impact of like your efforts and like what it can actually do. And it's like, sure, maybe you're not be able to recreate that exact situation again, but it's like the spirit of what you're doing was just like so like profound at that moment.
Yeah. And I think that's like, it's, we have these micro like influences on people, or every once in a while someone says something and just like hits home, we're impacted by that. And so I think as climbers, like these little actions can really lead to something positive later down the road. We just might not see it at the time.
You had said something, you said climbing is a privilege and not a right. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. I think like kind of when I say that, it's kind of through the lens of a land manager, in a sense, where like being on public land, there's so much going on with like sensitive species, cultural resources. And so, when climbing and these things come to head, I think it's really easy for a land manager to say no climbing, because like we need to protect the resource. And so, for examples, think of like Devil's Tower in Wyoming. There's a seasonal closure, I think in June, which it's sacred to that tribe there. And so if it was like my right, well, screw that, I'm just going to go climb. But like climbers respect that. And so I kind of take that as like a privilege. Like, there's a privilege, we can climb here for 11 out of the 12 months. So we're going to respect that. Areas like Waco tanks, bouldering down there, like you need a guide because it's such an archaeological site. So you can't just waltz in there. And so I think that's another like example of like, this is a privilege. Like we can climb with these regulations. And then even like down in Bears Ears National Monument, where that's a very interesting thing, because it's essentially, so you have the tribes and then you have the United States government coming up with a plan of how to manage this area. And you can kind of think of it as like, these tribes are a sovereign nation. You can think of it as Mexico and the United States having a park and co-managing it. And so these areas are sacred. I get that. And for climbers to come in and advocate, like, we want to climb here. We've been climbing for a long time. Like, what can we do to make this work? And so again, I kind of look at that as like we're getting the privilege to climb in these areas rather than as like our flat out right. And like I was kind of thinking about this on my way over here that I think if things are kind of looked at as a privilege rather than a right, I think we show up differently. And I was kind of thinking about, like kind of the right to bear arms. I feel like if that was more of a privilege in our culture, we would treat it a little differently.
I mean, it is. You can lose it.
You can lose it, but not a lot of people view it that way. This is my God-given right. And so
Can't exactly give a climber a felony and be like, can't climb anymore, buddy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like a good thing to kind of like approach it that way, that it's not set in stone. It can be taken away. There can be friction. There can be limitations. And so if I have a privilege, how do I show up with that privilege and to not lose it? It's like a child with, their keys to the first car. Don't want to wreck it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that sentiment, and I love that approach. It's like if we do view this as a privilege and not a right, it changes how we approach it in the first place. And I think that's really important. I do like to, like when it comes to consequences for not viewing things that way, I like to try to, like, in my life, I've always lived like pushing the edge. Where's the boundary? What happens on the other side of these boundaries that are laid out for us? Like what lies on the other side of when the climbing community does not respect areas? Like what are the real consequences that we see as a climbing culture or climbing community? Like, is there an example? Like what are the real felt consequences for not behaving in a way that's ethical and honestly human?
Yeah. Just kind of like fuck around and find out, like pushing those boundaries.
Yeah. Like what happens? Like, cause people talk about banning climbing and I don't really see how that's enforceable. And so I'm always like, obviously I'm not advocating, for malbehavior or malfeasance, but like, I always like to know, like, are there like, cause it's so easy if you can give people a concrete example of like, yes, like if we don't get our act together as a climbing community, we don't behave like we should, this is what happens. Like, has something happened that way that can be used as like an example on like what we do physically lose if we don't behave in the right way?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that comes to my mind. And there has been like restrictions of like certain code on like for the Forest Service being enforced and just how it's interpreted, with like bolting moratoriums, things like that. I feel like that is fuck around and find out, potentially being an example. And like, for climbing to be to be banned, yeah, like I can see like lawsuits happening, but I don't have any examples.
Yeah, like the only example I can see are like indigenous lands where like Bears Ears or a Monument Valley or Shiprock, like these areas, like climbing is banned. Like you're not supposed to climb there. And I mean, like the worst thing that happened if you climb there, you're going to get a ticket. You're going to get arrested by the indigenous police or whatever. Like it is enforceable. But yeah, like, I don't know. I think that like as climbers in general, we are a rebellious group. It's like built in our blood. Like it's just who we are. And so I think it's in our nature to question rules. And I think a lot of the climbing community is definitely very much like scare you into silence, or, like it's like kind of, it seems like this very like, we all need to do this without any explanation of why sometimes. And so I like to try to just like be real and paint that picture of just like, this is what we have to lose. Like, this is, why everybody is so, like loud and important, like why we need to be like this, why we need to behave like this is because there are real risks involved.
And it's like, I'm sure there's someone out there that could, add more to it. But, I feel like at times we're just like, we're in uncharted waters. Like we don't know what could happen.
So let's behave in a way that's positive and let's not find out.
Yeah, totally. And like, like I guess I think of some private lands, like, Yeah, up in Salt Lake City in Little Cottonwood Canyon, there's a 140-acre plot called the Gate Buttress. We actually leased that through the LDS Church, and they have their vault there, and their vault has a whole bunch of like genealogical records. At least that's what we're told. And kind of the thing, people have been climbing there since the 60s, and when we got that lease in I think 2017. It was like, all right, your main job is to keep climbers away from the vault. Steward it however you want, just keep people away, then we'll be happy, because people kept wandering in. And so like that's our agreement. And people keep wandering in there, they're going to be like, you're not doing your thing.
There's been examples of Colorado of, I think there was a crag that closed relatively recently within the last like 2 years, right? Like it was a private landowner and it was just like, that was it. No more climbing here.
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah. I would say like indigenous lands, private lands, those are the ones that hold real consequences, where like it's not federally owned. It's not wilderness area. It's not a national park. Like I think the logistics of actually banning climbing in a national park or wilderness area is just blatantly unenforceable. Do we want a bunch of legislation around climbing in those areas because we've been acting terrible? Definitely not. We don't want to go down that road. But I think that like, private lands that's where like the hard cost of misbehaving is going to be felt. It's like private landowner has every right to go up with a gun and be like, this is my property, get the fuck off my land. And so like, that's where you can actually lose access completely.
But I think a big thing is too, like if we show up the best way we can, and the land manager sees that, and then when they're talking to their superiors, when they're talking about land management and they're making the decisions, the local ranger can be like, I've been working with the climbers. They care, they show up, they take care of these places. Like I'm not a climber myself, but like I'm going to advocate for that. And that goes a long way. And so I think that speaks volumes too, if we're a dick, he's be like, screw them.
Yeah. It's really hard to gain that respect back once you lose it.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And word spreads fast too. Like I would imagine like landowners in these areas, like they're probably well connected. They probably have like connections in the local government, local communities. And like, if you lose respect there, you're going to lose respect elsewhere, like in areas you weren't even expecting. And again, it's really hard to gain that back. And unfortunately, one bad climber can ruin it for an entire community.
Totally.
Yeah.
I guess another thing I was just thinking of, in St. George, Mose Valley, the bouldering area. Have you heard much what's going on?
I've heard of it, haven't heard about it.
So essentially there's this northern corridor project where the Utah Department of Transportation wants to build a road that kind of bypasses parts of I-15 and goes into St. George. But it's going to go through like a conservation area, which would just set a whole precedent. A whole bunch of desert tortoises out there. And so kind of right now, they're like, well, if we don't build this road, we're going to build houses where Mose Valley is. But if you let us build this corridor, well, no houses. So it's kind of this like quid pro quo thing going on, which is very complicated with the state. And so, that's a huge resource for that community, for Utah, and even just for the United States. People love bouldering at Mose Valley. And so that's like, we don't know what's going to happen. And like the city, the state, the county, like everyone kind of has their hands in it because it's sitting on SITLA land, which is land that the state owns. When they sell it, a lot of that money goes back into funding schools. And so they sell it to the highest bidder. It's just to make money. So nothing's guaranteed there.
Yeah. And unfortunately, climbers don't really have that like monetary power. It's like, we aren't bringing a bunch of revenue to the area. It's like, oh, do you want a housing complex or do you want a bunch of these dirty climbers that love climbing there? It's like,
Yeah, but there is a significant, like, not enough to ignore, like the amount that recreation brings in.
That's cool. The tourism.
But like again, like a $1 million house, that's easier to to sell for sure.
Which is, I mean, it sucks that money rules the world. Like the housing complex here at Blue Diamond. Yeah, that whole thing too. There's like one main guy who's been like pushing to build there, and everyone's been pushing back. No one wants it, but he's super connected. He's bribing people. He's blackmailing people, and like he won. And now there's going to be houses up there. Money talks. This show is brought to you by Lives In Designs. Lives In comes from the Swedish word livsinjutare, which literally means one who lives life fully. Living life fully for us means alpine starts, long days, and tough conditions that test our gear. Lives In rises to meet that standard so that you can focus on the experience and not your clothes. Their clothing is functional, versatile, and durable, purpose-built for life in the outdoors, with a goal to inspire us to invest more in quality products so that we can own less and live more. Whether you're at the crag, high up on a wall, on a date, or at work, Lives In is there for the entire lifestyle of the outdoor enthusiast. And they have an in-house repair program, so if they rip, tear, or fall apart in any way, you can send them in to Lives In. You even get to decide whether your repair falls under warranty or wear and tear. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy it, try it, and if you still don't like it, they'll just give you your money back. Right now, you can get 15% off at Lives In by going to the link in the description below and using code TCM15 at checkout. That's the link in the description below and code TCM15 at checkout. And remember, every dollar spent at Lives In is a dollar spent supporting this podcast. Talk to me about the first time you really realized like the weight and importance of having like good established fixed anchors on trade routes.
Yeah. So I think that is like 10 years ago, 10 years plus. My buddy Scott and we were climbing the northwest face of Half Dome. It was like just after 4th of July and woke up in the valley. It was just after like a huge like 3-day thunderstorm, this torrential downpour, and walked up there. Went up the death slabs, kind of noticed that like all this crap was just kind of everywhere. Just kind of assumed it was from the storm. Started climbing, got to the Robbins Traverse, went through the Robbins Traverse and was going to kind of start making our way into the chimneys. And there's no longer a flake that you could traverse over. It was gone. And it took me a while to really like realize that it was gone. Because I just started climbing up the down climbing variation of the free section. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. I see anchors over there, and my buddy Scott goes up and he looks and he's like, yeah, this thing's fucking gone.
Wow. And it's probably hard to comprehend because of the scale.
Oh, yeah. And like, hundreds and hundreds of people have slept on that ledge there. And like kind of jogging memory of like, oh, that's why like the death slabs are so annihilated. The spring was missing. And so like we bailed from there, and we were just talking about, just hat, up there. And it's just like, being kind of poor, you're just like, which is kind of funny. You have like $1,000 of cams on you, and you're like, do I leave a cam or do I leave a nut? Do I leave this ratty draw or just let ratty sling? But, you're just piecing things together. You're finding old bail stations and just like, okay, that was kind of fucked up. If there was like, a 2-bolt anchor station, like that would have been a no-brainer. But, we were in the mountains and that was different. And so I think that kind of like, given the unique situation we were in, I was like, it would have been nice to have something better. And this is super unforeseeable. It wasn't that we were unprepared. It wasn't that, weather came in. It was just like, we cannot go. We got to go down.
What was the sketchiest thing you wrapped on?
I probably just like a single nut.
With a backup and then pulled out the second one? Yeah.
That kind of thing. So like, I think we wouldn't have done anything. It wouldn't have been like a micro.
Mm-hmm. Still, single piece of pro is
totally.
It's unnerving. I've done it once. It's not ideal.
Yeah, and like I'm kind of the one always drawing the shortest straw, but my buddy's way bigger, so I'm always the one going last, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So yeah, that was a weird one.
That's wild. And you were just like, people shouldn't be in this situation. basically. Like this is a route that so many people are on. If people want to bail halfway up this route, they should be able to do so safely.
Yeah, and I know that's kind of a double-edged sword, but it kind of got me thinking of like, where is that boundary? Into, I guess, on top of that story is like when we got down, there was I think a group of 3 or 4 Chinese. We got down and they just showed up and they did not speak any English. And so we were trying to communicate with them of like, this does not go. This thing is missing. And they're just like, and like the best we could do is like we pulled out our topo, showed them the pitch and just like a big X, gone. And we walked out of that like I hope they got the message. And so I don't know what happened to them, but if there was another party that was less experienced, got in that situation, who knows? Who knows what happened?
Yeah, it's a tough one too. Like part of that route is the commitment. And like if you could bail at any point, it like almost takes away from the character of the route in a way.
100%.
And so yeah, I mean we'll get into the like risk philosophy of like bolts and stuff a little bit later, but yeah. So a little bit like back, so we're on the topic of fixed anchors now. Like you guys run a professional anchor maintenance crew. What's like the biggest rebolting project you've handled so far?
Me, I would say like the program itself. It's probably biggest thing that's done was rebolting the pipe dream cave in Maple Canyon. That was like when they first started off, and it's one of the bigger caves in Utah. So many routes, so many variations, just crap everywhere. And they spent 2 weeks out there and they rebolted the whole thing. I can't remember how many bolts, but just such an undertaking. And that was kind of the big project to prove to the community that this program can work with community backing. And because it's like people are whipping all over the place. It's just like
Constantly testing the hardware.
Yeah, 514s up there. So I would say that was kind of got like kind of the street cred. I was not a part of that project. Looking back, with the team, it varies. Like, we rebolted another steep crag called the Compound. I think that was a huge success. Rebolting big features in Little Cottonwood Canyon. So there's the Thumb. I can't remember how many like pitches the whole thing goes up. It's like 8, but there's like so many routes that go up. And so like showing up, getting the rope set, having our thoroughfare of ropes, teams at different levels, making the daily commute all the way up to the top, and we were rebolting all these routes that were put up on lead, going hole for hole, holding that character, and updating 1/4-inch button heads to get glue ins. And so like, I feel really bad because that was last year's first project. I'm like, hey guys, let's go. And like we were all destroyed, but like I was so proud of those guys. And just like even all the little things, there's I think every project we do, like rebolting a whole crag, rebolting a multi-pitch, it's just so much work goes into it.
Yeah,
So,
talk to me a little bit about the logistics. Like how are you rebolting a cave? Like bottom up, top down? Like how are you getting there without actually physically climbing there?
Yeah. So like if it's a route that's above our pay grade, we'll stick clip up, put the rope in the draws, and then we'll have the line fixed through the draws and then one coming down to the ground. So you kind of always have this like continuous like circle. And so you kind of have to do it in stages. And so you get the rope up, you come down, and then you get your drill, then you go up and you drill a new hole. You really can't go hole for hole in steep stuff because you need that bolt to keep you in. So you do that, drill your holes, go up, come back down. transition to gluing or installing the bolt, go up, put the glue in, come back down, wait for the glue to cure, go back up, transition the draws from the old bolts to the new bolts, remove the old bolt, patch, go all the way back up, and then you remove the old anchor, switch it to the new anchor. So it's just a constant.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. It's
Even with a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's thrashed. That's why we do a week on, week off.
Oh, wow.
Because it kind of need definitely a few days to recover after that.
And your team's full-time doing this?
They're like seasonal part-time, I say. So
do you have another job?
What's that?
Do you have another job?
Oh, so I'm full-time. Yeah. The team, some of them are guides. Some work at gear store, do work at height work. So they kind of like pepper it in with their other work.
Got it. And you're able to compensate them for their time financially.
For sure. Yep. They're all paid. Yeah. And, we have insurance. And so if anything happens at work, they're covered.
Are people applying for these jobs, or is it based off of like reference and network?
Yeah. Like I do get people, hey, if you ever need more people on the team, I'd love to apply. Right now, I've kind of found the secret number to be at 5 and myself. When we do have an opening, I definitely open it up for people to apply.
How do you know when bolts need to be replaced?
Yeah. I mean, like the obvious things, a lot of older bolts, like button heads, like 1/4 inch.
Like, how do you know they exist? How do you know, like, is it just community outreach? Like, hey, these are fucked up. Like, here's a picture of this, man. Like, we need to get a crew out here. You talked in the beginning a little bit about having like data on all these areas. Like, talk to me a little bit more about that process and like how much of a pulse you actually have on like the lifespan of these bolts and all the crags. And I guess also too, like, are you going to get to a point where you've exhausted replacing retrobolting routes in the Salt Lake City area?
Yeah. So kind of the first question there. Yeah. So it's like a community effort. So we have like an observation forum. People submit, like, I've noticed this thing spinning. There's this old bolt here. So community input, having conversations with people at the crag, I think that's huge. I kind of talk about, like, I tend to climb in certain zones. Our team tends to climb in certain zones, but there's so much climbing in the Wasatch. And so it's like, where do you climb? What are you noticing? Because if we're not doing where the community is climbing, we're not doing our job. And so community input is huge. Looking through the guidebook, 1974, whatever. And if I know in those that it hasn't been replaced, I have an idea of maybe what those bolts are, and especially who put it up and what style. Mountain project, spend too much time on the mountain project.
Just scanning
keywords like bolt, anchor, bad, sling.
Are you able to utilize AI for that yet?
No.
It would be sick, because I think there's this guy out here in Red Rock Canyon who has developed an AI to scan mountain project for people who have left comments that they've bailed and left gear, and then he goes and grabs them.
Yes.
So it sounds like you could like build something that would allow you to like have an automated system that would alert you if someone's like commented like there's a spinner or there's a bolt without actually having to scan.
Yeah. So like, I don't know if like my friend created a program that scrapes data, and it's just like I can download all the data from this crag, and then it spits it out into a spreadsheet, and then I can just like keyword. I don't know if that's
sounds about right.
So I have that, and I think that's a really cool thing that she did. But I love that. That's like the most like dirtbag but anti-dirtbag thing ever.
Yeah, he's cleaning up the crags, man.
Dude, I think half my creek rack is booty.
Yeah, that's rad.
So yeah, just constant, like, wherever I can get data, and then put this in a pile, formulate a plan, and like, can we work here? And then talk to the crew and kind of like come out with a little bit of a plan. I'll probably talk about it later, but in the Wasatch, we have a lot of wilderness that's really close to the road. Currently can't work in wilderness. And so right now, like, to kind of what you asked of, like, are we going to exhaust? Kind of. Like, we're getting to a point where pretty much everything is in a relatively good state that's in non-wilderness. There might be like little one-offs here and there, but then it's like, once we are able to work in wilderness, then it's just a whole other landscape of bad crap that's just been sitting there.
Why can't you work in wilderness?
Yeah, it really comes down to like an interpretation of the Wilderness Act that's been standing for a long time.
Oh, didn't it say that all fixed hardware that exists currently is okay to be there, but no new hardware can be established? Isn't that the law?
No. So kind of going back to like when the Wilderness Act was put in place, there's climbers that were part of this, David Brower being one of them. And so like people that were in favor of the Wilderness Act were climbers, mountaineers. They understood that landscape. But within that, there's language of like no installations. And like that's been the debate ever since. Well, not ever since, but it really didn't pick up until like late 90s, early 2000s. And so like, is a bolt an installation? Is a fixed sling around a tree installation? Is a piton? Or are we looking at buildings or roads, fences, a lookout tower for fire, like what is the definition? And so that's what it really came down to, of that interpretation in different land managers of like, well, this is illegal. And so it's kind of been like this, like we can't touch it. But the Access Fund and the climb community has really, really rallied and got the Protect America's Rock Climbing Act put into the Explore Act, which was passed about a little over a year ago, which essentially is saying that fixed anchors are an appropriate use of wilderness for climbing. And it paves a way to potentially maintain anchors in the future. The installation of new anchors, like, I think that's kind of like still under debate with the land agencies. We're still waiting for guidance. They were given 1.5 years to come up with guidance. Probably have about 4 months left until that. So we'll see if they abide by that. Now like there's legal avenue now, and it solidifies that fixed anchors are an appropriate use. Huge win. And kind of like when I say fixed anchors, I think it's easy to think bolts, but we're also talking about pitons, slings around trees, kind of anything that you would attach yourself to that we leave.
Yeah. What about, like, you guys are like an established team, there's organization, there's LCOs. I definitely know of a few rogue rebolters that are doing a service for the community, but are doing it under the cover of anonymity. What are the dangers there?
Yeah. I mean, that's like, just first off, people going out and rebolting on their own, using their own money, buying the hardware, like that's just a thankless thing. And like super, super support the efforts. It's just so much work. And I understand how much work goes into it. I think it really comes down to the type of person that's rebolting and the community that they're in, where friction can be created between the rebolter and the climbing community. So I guess one thing I'm kind of thinking of is up in Logan Canyon, individual, and realized that like no one is doing any rebolting work up in Logan Canyon. And he took it upon himself to start doing this. And, within the rebolting space, there's different ways to go about it. Do I go hole for hole? Do I put a new bolt next to the old bolt? Or do I be like, this is a great line. It can be re-engineered. so I can move things over or around. And so I think it comes down to like, what kind of rebolter are you and how are you going about it? And so if you're going and maybe starting to move bolts around, repositioning things, that can piss some people off. And, in this event, it pissed some people off. We also have a sensitive cliff dwelling species up there it's like a primrose, which is just endemic to Logan Canyon.
I thought you were going to say some kind of human or some kind of climber. Yeah, the cliff dwellers.
And like, were these roots near that? I don't know. But like, land manager got involved and was like, all right, no more root development.
Well, so right there, my guess would be the only reason why the land manager got involved was because of the internal friction that happened in the community in the first place.
100%.
And I think that right there is our biggest enemy. It's ourselves. It's our tension within ourselves. If we are loudly, whether in person, in the public, or online, which is a public place, and land managers are going to be watching these forums about their land that people are on, if we are bickering amongst ourselves and showing like not great versions of ourselves and showing we can't like manage our own shit, it's an easy way for land managers to just shut shit down.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like, as a community that I think we pride ourselves for self-policing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I honestly think it's the only way forward, because I don't want to sound arrogant, but we know best. We're the ones doing it.
We're the experts.
We should be the ones making the decisions in this realm, but we need to get our shit together and be all on the same fucking page. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because the whole climbing community in general is not that. It's just like, it only takes a few bad interactions and the whole system starts to crumble. And, the unfortunate thing is like, land managers from all over the country, like, take little bits and pieces from other places. So like state parks and Tennessee look at, ranger districts out west, like, what are they doing? And then apply policy, so it's like, there's this ripple effect that we don't even realize.
Yeah. So like one area closes in the Wasatch Range because of some internal conflict between one guy and like a small community. And then all of a sudden you get like closures in like Northeast New Hampshire or whatever, because those people are connected with that person. And they're like, well, sounds like climbers are bad news. I'm going to shut this down before anything happens to my land.
Yeah. And it's like, a law was cited, that's how it's interpreted. And it's another land manager like, oh, like, I interpret that law the same way. And then, with working on Forest Service property, we have a whole bunch of different, so in the Uinta Wasatch Cache, we have a whole bunch of different ranger districts. So the rangers are kind of like the head of their district. And in order to get a promotion in the Forest Service, you kind of have to move forests. So we have this constant rotation of new rangers. And so you don't know if someone's coming in with some bias about rock climbers or if they've been a rock climber themselves. And so we're constantly playing this like catch up of like educating and just crossing your fingers that they're friendly. And when you have a friendly ranger who's willing to work with you, run with it. Because you don't know who you're going to get next.
That's crazy. Such instability there. Yeah, that's wild. We'll get back to talking in just 1 minute, but first, I need to tell you about my favorite climbing pants. Livzin's EcoTrek trail pants are by far the best climbing pants I've worn in my entire 12 years of climbing. Durable, flexible, lightweight, and packed with useful features like zippered pockets, an internal waistband drawstring, and a unique leg roll-up system. Other climbing pants don't even come close. Either the fit is terrible, they wear out in a single season, or you can only wear them climbing. Livzin's EcoTrek trail pants are unique in the fact that they're rugged enough to climb in and still classy enough to go out on a date in. You're essentially getting 2 pairs of pants for the price of 1. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy them, try them, and if you still don't like them, they'll just give you your money back. Right now, you can get 15% off your next pair of Livzin EcoTrek trail pants by going to the link in the description below and using code TCM15 at checkout. That's the link in the description below and code TCM15 at checkout. And remember, every dollar spent at Livzin is a dollar spent supporting this podcast. So moving on from rebolting bad fixed hardware, I think that's like pretty easy for people to get on board with. Like, bolts are bad, bolts are going to kill someone. What about like adding bolts to routes? I think this is retro bolting, right? That's what that term is. You have a quote here. He says, if it's scary, leave it the same. If it's dangerous, change something. Explain the difference for you between scary and dangerous when it comes to routes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that quote came from Boone Speed when we reached out to him about one of his routes of rebolting it. And there's a lot of talk on Mountain Project. Oh, there's a huge run out to the chains. And then it was just like, if it's dangerous, do something. If it's scary, keep it. And I think that was the sentiment of a lot of sport climbing back in the 80s. There's a lot of friction between them and trad climbers. It's like we want you to make the move instead of just plug in the camp. And so, and I think that's kind of something we look at, and like there is a difference. And so, dangerous, is there potential for landing on a ledge? Can you deck? Are there features that you might fall into, X, Y, and Z? And so those are obviously like glaring dangerous issues. And if it's just heady, you just have to like zone in and do it. Cool. We'll try to go hole for hole as much as we can. And because like climbing is such a spectrum, and if people are looking for that experience, I don't want to take that away from them. If people want to climb, 510 RX slab routes, do it. And then they're going to go to Tuolumne Meadows and just like crush it, and go other places and crush it. And I think that's a form of pride, like coming from the Wasatch. It's like those people can train on the local crag and then crush, other places. So, it's a fine line, and I think having a group of people to discuss and like, I think you're wrong. I think it's more scary than dangerous. Having that dialogue, and then bringing in community members too if it gets if we can't come to a consensus.
Yeah. So how does that work? So like I think that the general accepted rule is like talk to the first ascensionist, right? I think that's like the first thing people go to. But there's like this example where like I think snake deck is a great example. It's like 5 pitches. I think there's a bolt every 50 feet. 5.6, 5.7.
Yeah, 5.7.
5.7 and one pitch of 5.7. And so you get all these people going up there, and then people are like, oh, wow, this is like a lot more intense than I thought it was. We had the girl who lost her foot from New Zealand a couple of years ago. And so there's been this push to rebolt that route or retrobolt that route to make it safer. The first ascensionist has, I think, said, yes, go ahead. But then there's this huge backlash from the community, or maybe a few loud people that are just like, no, like this is completely ethically wrong. That would change snake dike forever. It's not what it's meant to be. So like, who has the right in the end? Is it a community group consensus? Is it the loudest person wins? Is it the first ascensionist? Like, how have you guys handled that in your community? Obviously, snake dike is a bigger problem that you aren't actually going to be solving, but it's a good example for this conversation.
Yeah, no, totally. It's kind of rare that we get into that situation where we're adding a bolt. But when we do, it's definitely like, let's talk to the first ascensionist. If they're like, pretty much they've all been like, yeah, go for it. Totally makes sense. Because I think a lot of these people, as they're aging, they're starting to see their mortality. Like they're climbing the stuff they put up years ago, and they're like, what the fuck was I thinking? And so I'm like having these conversations, and they're going back and adding more bolts. And so their sentiment's changing a little bit more now. And so I think it's not like we're going out there and like we want to put bolts between bolts. We want to retro bolt everything. It's like a really case by case thing. And so I think engaging the community in that way, and especially the first ascensionists, and trying to pull the community maybe. If there's something that we need a little bit more of a broader conversation around, the last 2 years we've been having this Utah New Router Symposium, and kind of like we've had these bigger conversations of retrobolting and trying to have the conversation that's a little bit more open, less attacking. And I feel like the door is open. We're having these more honest conversations, and I feel like the community is more willing to have it. And as overcrowding, as more people coming into climbing, kind of the new topic is like, some of these really run out routes that do not see a single ascent, in a year, maybe one ascent every 5 years. Do we add a few more bolts there to disperse traffic where it actually gets climbed, rather than it just gaining cobwebs and like disappears into the oblivion? I think this kind of, there's no answer there, but it's just kind of how do we move forward? A conversation with your community.
I think one of those things too is like if it's uncharacteristic with the rest of the crag or the rest of the wall, I think there's a conversation there. It's like you got one X-rated route on the entire wall. Like why does that have to be there? Yeah.
Totally.
And I think other examples like the backer you're in, like if someone went and retrobolted that, you might have World War 4, 5, and 6.
100%. Well, and that's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
For people.
And I think that part of climbing should, like, I think you already said this, but I think that part of climbing should stay. I think there is like a level of psychological test pieces that need to be there, because that's what people search for in climbing, and that should not just be like stripped away just because it exists. Like, and people should be educated enough to get to know what they're getting themselves into. And I guess like I spoke with someone recently from New Mexico, and they're like, there's just not a lot of documentation on some of these routes, and you get onto it and it's just like, it's like RX rated. And it's like, part of that is that you're climbing obscure routes with not a lot of data on them. So kind of be prepared for whatever. But yeah, I mean, if you run into something like that, it's like, oh, I want to make this safer. And it's like, then it is a mess because it's not your route. And then you got to find the first ascensionist, and, you might piss off somebody who's being the police at that crag. So I can see it being pretty messy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the great thing about enjoying our public lands is like, you can go out there and enjoy it within law and reason, and like find the experience that you're looking for. And the most growth I've ever, gone through as a climber is like being scared out of my fucking mind in the mountains and pushing through and like telling myself I've come out a better person. But,
jury's out.
Totally.
Yeah. You had also said something here I thought was interesting. You're like, once the bolts are placed in, it's a community thing. Public land, it's a community thing. Having one person that's the dictator, having one person is, I guess I wrote this wrong. Having one person that's a dictator, but if you're not maintaining your route and someone gets hurt, are you going to be the one that holds responsibility for that? And I thought that was great. It's a great point, because it's like you probably have come into examples with certain first ascensionists that are digging their heels into like, well, that's the way it was. I don't want you touching my route. But then like maybe someone climbs it and they fall and the bolt rips and they die. Like, yeah, if you approach that person and be like, well, you're the one who didn't want bolts here. Are you going to pay for this guy's medical bills? He's for sure going to be like, well, no, and that's a mess.
Totally.
Have you run into situations like that before where you have people just like digging their heels in?
Yeah. It's definitely getting better, but there are some individuals that have put up their arms of like, I just don't want you guys to touch it. It's like, okay. But at some point, like, we are going to touch it. Is that when you die? And like it's interesting, like not to crap on the boomers, but it's generally of that generation, and things have changed. Like, like it pains me to see another GoFundMe for an accident. That wasn't happening. Like, things were affordable. Like, things are different now. There's so many people out there, and so I don't understand the don't rebolt my route. I 100% understand don't add more bolts. But like,
They're like, don't touch it at all.
yeah, it's becoming more and more rare. But you know, there's definitely like huge, like there's definitely routes that are of a safety concern that a lot of people climb. Accidents have happened, and it's, you know, do we add another bolt or not? Like, don't even touch it. So it's okay. If someone breaks, you know, someone dies on it, that's on you. And we're trying to save lives here. And where's that line?
You, in the beginning of that film you sent me, there was an elderly gentleman who had lost a friend to a failed bolt. Tell me that story a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was Jay Smith. Yeah. So that film, I think, that'll be coming out pretty soon here. Yeah. So yeah, they were climbing at Catwall in the 70s, and they were in a party of 3. And I think when Jay was cleaning the anchor, it was, I think, like an old Steve Hong machine bolt, and he just leaned back on it, and the thing pulled, and he fell to his death.
There wasn't like a system, like he wasn't connected to bolts all the way down? Why was that the only point of connection for him?
Because it was a trad route. I think he just got, and that was just that top anchor. And I think he was just top roping it.
Oh, okay.
I think that's how the story went. And so, like, you know, we've worked in Indian Creek for 2 years, and we've pulled out those machine bolts, and they are not good. They are sketchy. Essentially, just pull, and you just kind of screw something with threads in it, and so, you know, that impacted him for the rest of his life, impacted his family. You know, there's, think of another accident. I don't know if you've heard of this one. I think maybe early 2000s, there was a gentleman in the Owens River Gorge in California, outside of Bishop. He was aiding stick clipping his way up like a 510 to kind of do like top rope solo. Clipped in the third bolt pulled, fell to his death. And I think that was like a 1/4 inch or like a 5/16. And so kind of you have these little incidences that happen every now and then, but like that's impacts the community so much.
What's the worst bolts you've pulled out? Like, how many times do you come across a death bolt?
You know, probably the worst thing I pulled out, probably just a classic like 1/4 inch button head. Sometimes they come out really easily. Sometimes they're stubborn, which is kind of I guess, a little concerning, because I haven't really figured out like what's what. But like just we'll pull back, done. Indian Creek too, like getting into some top anchors. You know, I wouldn't say it wasn't bad in terms of like corroded, but there is this older style bolt called Legacy bolt that was meant to be removable. And how it's removed is you loosen it up a little bit, and you just kind of push it in and you pull it out. And just with the nature of top anchors and sandstone is they loosen up. And so when I got up to this anchor, luckily there's a few other, like another bolt or two, I just pulled out and out. So shiny stainless steel, look great. But if someone just got up there and pulled out, that thing would have gone. So yeah, I don't think rust is really like the true indicator of a bad bolt.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more. Like as climbers, when we're out there in the wilderness area, Red Rock, wherever, I think it's very easy to show up to any sort of bolt and just clip it and forget it. What can we look for? What are some like key signs of like, wow, like I should take a second look at this and double check it, or should we be doing that to every bolt? Like, how can we discern safety on bolts a little bit better?
Yeah, totally. You know, like if it's spinning, you know, I think that's an indicator something.
The hanger.
The hanger.
It just means that it's loose.
Yeah.
Now, what causes it to become loose? Like sometimes I see new looking hardware where the hanger is spinning a little bit, and I just chalk it up to the fact that it wasn't drilled in all the way.
And that's too, yeah. Like I think there's a lot of scenarios that can contribute to that. So like there's two main bolts that we'd come across out there. And there's one where you just see like a hex head and a hanger. And that's typically your like a 5-piece bolt. And then there's one that you see with a nut and threads. And we call those like studs or wedge bolts. And so with the stud wedge bolts, like the nut can come off, the hanger can come off, then you can just show up and there's just threads. Yeah. So like that's kind of easily mitigated. You can just put some Loctite and tighten it down. With the other piece, like the hanger can't come off, but if those like loosen up, sometimes that's a byproduct of you clip the bolt and you like climb out left. So it's always being pulled over. And so it kind of like loosens up a little bit. Or maybe the hole wasn't drilled in properly, or it wasn't tightened enough, or it was drilled in. Or maybe there's like crap in there. There's dirt. They didn't clean out the hole. But definitely like, if things are sticking out a lot, that's an indicator. Like in the black quarter today, like a few of the bolts I would just kind of wiggle. Like if the hanger was spinning, I'd wiggle the bolt and just see the head wiggling. And so there's a little bit of movement in there.
Does that mean it's like catastrophic failure if you fall on it?
No, but I would say like it might need to be tightened up. There could be some other factors. Like in this sandstone, it's, once you start tightening up, it kind of eats away into the hole. And so there's only so many times you can tighten it up until it's no longer gonna.
What are the main ways bolts fail? It almost sounds like the hanger coming off is like biggest one, then maybe like the whole bolt pulling out, and then what, like corrosion, like it just disintegrated on the inside. Rank those in order of frequency of like how often you might come across those.
So like corrosion is the biggest thing we deal with in the Wasatch. And kind of how the materials that were being used in like the 70s, 80s, and early 90s and early 2000s is you have a stainless steel hanger and a plated steel bolt. Putting those together, electrolysis happens. So it's the two metals are fighting against each other. And once you introduce water in there, it increases the corrosion. So the hanger is stainless steel. It looks good. The bolt head can look fine, but when you take that thing out, it's just pure rust, gunk, water's coming out, the whole thing. And so like that's kind of a like a hidden danger. Like I don't know it's bad until I pull it out.
How do you know? How could you test that? Like if you come up to it, is there like a visual cue of like, these are two plated metals, I need to pay attention to this?
Yeah. I think if you know what you're looking for, like it might take some time behind the wheel to understand like how different sheens of plated steel and stainless steel. But if you know it's like a root from the 90s and has been rebolted, chances are it's mixed metals. And so in areas that receive a lot of water, and like one thing, this is one thing I would love to do sometime, is we're kind of theorizing a little bit that the Great Salt Lake might have a little bit of a marine effect on some of the bolts. And so like coastal marine areas, stainless steel corrodes, where in arid air environments, stainless steel is completely good. And so you got to start using titanium, and because of the salt and all that. And so we're noticing that bolts that were installed in Big Cottonwood Canyon, which is quartzite, in the 80s are looking a certain way, but bolts that were installed in the Uinta Mountains, which are higher up, quartzite, buried under snow for, a fourth of the year, pulling those out same time they were put in, are looking better. So it's just it's a theory. we're kind of looking at.
Interesting. It's cool that you get so much data, so much time, like looking at all these bolts, you get so much information. Yeah, that's rad.
So it's a hard thing, but like definitely look for rust. I think rust is a huge indicator. Knowing the environment you're in, areas like Red Rocks, probably not going to see that much rust. Areas like the Pacific Northwest, you're going to see more, the Wasatch. But it's like I wish I could give someone the formula, but there's no.
Yeah. There's out here in Red Rock, there's a lot of, I think I've seen the hex rivets with like, they look like bed hangers, like bed frame.
Oh, like
hangers.
Oh yeah.
With like it's like a threaded screw and a nut on it. Are you clipping those and trusting them? Or like what, like, cause I don't even clip them. I just climb past them.
Yeah.
Like, is that just like a false sense of fear there? Or like, are these things rock solid? Like, cause I mean, if they hang, they look like they look great, but they're just like a little brown, they look like surface rust. Yeah. But other than that, they seem like no spinning, not loose. Is that like, would you whip on that?
I mean, like I would clip it and just be like mental pro, But it's that classic thing of like pitons. It's just like, there's a piton there. It's always been there. People clip it. They treat it like a bolt. And then you just hear like the rhetoric, oh, it's fine. Well, it's fine until it's not. And like when do we know? It's,
you don't want to be the guy that proves that it's not.
Yeah. And like, I know like relatively recently you guys had that, like, there's that climber who had a really big accident, cracked his head.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it wasn't like an anchor failure, but like, you clip something that everyone says, oh, it's probably fine. You take the whip, then you're that guy.
Well, I mean, that whole thing, you heard exactly what happened there. Yeah.
Didn't his like rope and clip from something?
So the rope side carabiner attached to an extended alpine sling, I suspect that got cross-loaded, and the rope, either the sling side or the rope side, weighted it sideways and broke the gate.
Ooh.
And then the whole thing failed because the carabiner was nowhere to be found, and the sling was just hanging from the nut, like with no carabiner attached to it. So I think that was just random chaos. Yeah. And it was the nature of the route meant that there wasn't enough pro to have a safety system where like that was it. That's all you had. And yeah, if it had arrested his fall, it would have been fine, but there wasn't enough pro below it to act as a backup. And it's like, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to put a locker on all your alpine draws? It's like, maybe. Not all of them, but like if you're in a situation where like, obviously like hindsight is 20/20, but like if you're looking down and you're placing a piece, you're like, okay, if this fails, I'm going to take a 100-footer or a 50-footer, or I'm going to fall way too far. Like maybe I'll put a locker on it, or maybe I'll like opposite and opposed two carabiners, like, mm-hmm. Yeah, that lesson, it's like chaos comes for us all. You gotta try to mitigate the chaos.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, back to the bolt thing. It's like, yeah. Do you want to trust? Like, would it probably hold? Probably yes. But you don't want to be the statistic.
Totally. And like a lot of those old bed frame hangers, like they're sharp. Like people have taken whippers and like filleted their legs on them. So there's like a little bit more, but and that's kind of the thing of like, I live in this world where like you're doing things according to like how the manufacturer says they're supposed to be used. And, buying hardware that's been tested, installing things to like manufacturer specs, and then you go out and you see these like homemade things, and I love the ingenuity of climbers, but that is just not meant for climbing. Let's put something that is meant for climbing.
And even though like know it works, everybody else is going to come up to it doesn't have that same understanding. Yeah,
it is cool to come across them.
I mean,
like,
yeah,
wow.
it's a artifact.
Yeah, totally. They're everywhere. And I think that's the special thing about climbing is like, again, the ingenuity, and you see these relics and you got to kind of like live with it for a minute, clip it, not clip it, move past it, have a conversation about it later. And then
Mm-hmm. Do you think that like those things should be like rebolted? Like those kind of bolts should be taken out and bolted, like rebolted with modern hardware?
yeah, I think it comes down like what's the function of that bolt? Like if it's a lead bolt and if it's there's a reason why that bolt was there. Maybe there isn't gear around, and if that's like mandatory, and if I fall and this thing fails, I'm gonna die like 100%.
The dangerous versus what was it again? Scary versus dangerous.
Scary versus dangerous.
Yeah,
totally. Kind of like one thing that we've into like different rebolters and different programs have their standards, and for us as the SLCA, like we're gonna replace anything that is inadequate. And so one thing that has been a little challenging for us is working down in Indian Creek is, there's a lot of different types of hardware up at these anchors. And there's these old aluminum hangers from Steve Hong, Bandito hangers that we'll come across. And so like people like to see those, and I get that. But if we're being hired to do a job, like we're going to remove everything. That's bad.
You wouldn't like put a new bolt next to it and leave it as like a historical artifact?
Because it's just like, unfortunately, you can't fix stupid. Someone might clip it. And just like the story of Jay, he clipped into it. And so it's like, we're going to remove that, any possibility. And then like, if we come across these, like we're going to give them back to Friends of Indian Creek. Maybe there can be a museum. You can observe it that way. But like, working at popular crags, Battle of the Bulge, Super Crack, like it's kind of crag. It's sport climbing, track climbing, and like you're there, you're getting the pitches, and to create any like nuance or like, ooh, what's this thing? But there's a good anchor here of like, let's get rid of it. Yeah. You can still experience that in the desert. There's just maybe not at like the classic crag.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. When I'm talking about these hangers, I have this one route that keeps coming to mind is Time's Up here in Red Rock. The Curiosities put it up, and it's like 4 or 5 of those bed hanger bolts, but there's like supplemental trad gear. Yeah. And so like I'd clip the bolt and then put trad gear and back it up. It's like, I would just do that for each one. And I think they were purposely left there for historical because there is trad that you can back it up with. Like there's no real point to chop it. It's like kind of, it adds to the character of the route.
Yeah. And that's like, the climbing community here, it's like, that's for them to decide on kind of how they want. And there's just so much climbing. Like I think there's space for stuff like that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's a harder route too. It's not like I think it's 12A, so it doesn't have a lot of traffic. Yeah. And if you're getting on that route, you hopefully know what you're doing. Yeah. Let's be real for a second. The blueprint for a successful climbing podcast is simple. Interview the most famous climbers in the world. Big names mean big followings, lots of SEO power, and a built-in audience that helps promote every episode. But this show has never been about that. From the beginning, it has been my mission to bring you stories from the climbing majority. The climbers who don't live in the limelight. The ones who quietly put up routes, build communities, and help give back in ways that are rarely recognized. And while that's what makes this show special, it also means we have an uphill battle when it comes to growth. And that is where you come in. If you believe in the show, if you've been fired up, inspired by an episode, word of mouth is the single most powerful way to help the show. Share an episode with a friend. Post about us on social media, jump onto Reddit threads and Mountain Project forums, and tell people what you've been listening to. Also, I am on a mission to beat Climbing Gold's Spotify review count. If you haven't already left this show a review, please head on over to Spotify to give this show 5 stars. We only have 1,000 more ratings to go. So kind of like circling back to more of like your work at the SLCA, like beyond just rebolting crags, like, it sounds like you're dealing with policy and land managers. There's like that advocacy side of your work. What are like the biggest battles happening right now that most climbers don't know about?
Yeah, I think like essentially just the assault on our public lands with this current administration is probably the biggest thing. We keep seeing these micro moves to strip away that. So last year there was an attempt to get rid of the roadless rule. I think that's still an attempt.
What is the roadless rule?
Which is essentially, I think I can't remember if it was a Clinton era thing or a Biden era, or not a Biden, Obama thing. I think it was Clinton. It essentially created millions of acres within like Forest Service land that were essentially set aside for recreation. And it kind of created this buffer between kind of more like urban extraction parts of the Forest Service and like wilderness. And so it's kind of this buffer. You can't go in there a log. You can't start mining. There's heavy restrictions in building roads. But if there's a fire out there, like the firefighting crew can still go, build roads to access these things. And so it adds this extra layer of protection. And so a lot of climbing is on these roadless rule areas. And so, if that was stripped, it would open it up potentially to be logged and mined. And so, one day you could go out to your crag and then there's a mining operation. And so it's these protections are trying to be stripped back. This administration wants to extract, and so weakening the Forest Service and weakening our public lands, essentially. Whether that's reducing staffing, reducing their budget, making them look like they're failing because they just don't have anything to operate with.
Crippling it from the inside so that there's not a lot of pushback when policy actually gets made. Yeah.
So I would say that's the biggest thing, and it comes up in these different ways, whether it's locally within your state, with on a national level. So
how can we be more involved to push back?
Yeah, I think like when there's these call to actions, I'd say that like the Outdoor Alliance is kind of the go-to on these things. And so essentially the Outdoor Alliance is this nonprofit that does a lot of public outreach and lobbying, but they're made of the Access Fund, IMBA, so like the international like mountain biking, like canoeing, rafting. So it's a whole bunch of human-powered recreation entities work together with the Outdoor Alliance on a lot of these policy things. And so they're really good at, hey, this is what's happening. We need you to write a comment. We need you to reach out to your senator, your representatives, get involved, speak out, because we're your constituent and we don't want this. So I would say stay in tune with them, but especially like climbing specific, the Access Fund is really good at the alerts.
Yeah. And I mean, just to reiterate, like our voice matters, even though we have people like the Access Fund advocating for us.
100%. They can only do so much. Because, when it comes to, election, as constituents, like, hey, X, Y, and Z, you voted for this and I didn't want you to vote for this and I am pissed. And these people want to be reelected and they need to represent their constituents, not one person, who's in the Oval Office. So,
what about your actual model? So, like the SLCA, like I said in the beginning, I think a lot of people are kind of like talking about how, as an LCO, like you guys are the people that other LCOs strive to be. The fact that you have funding for bolting, you're able to kind of do so much work. I feel like a lot of LCOs are more paralyzed and they don't have either it's because it's funding, they don't have community involvement, or they're a lot of the land is in wilderness, and so they don't really know how to kind of like move forward. Like, how do you see the SLCA scalable? Like, not necessarily where you guys are the ones doing work elsewhere, but like, how can current LCOs grow and become kind of like similar to what you guys are doing and be more organized and funded?
Yeah, I think how they can do that, I think it really takes a lot of energy from the community and in like the board of directors, the people that are, you know, overseeing this purely volunteer organization. And so I guess one thing I'm seeing is like Friends of Indian Creek down in Moab. Um, they've been volunteer based since their conception, and now they're trying to start fundraising to have a part-time paid executive director. So to scale that, and so that takes a lot of community outreach, a lot of like social media, a lot of fundraising, joint memberships with the Access Fund, and motivation behind the board, and also like the community itself. And that's kind of how I'm seeing it. I've been really lucky to just kind of walk into this machine that's been working so well. So I haven't really seen those growing pains from other LCOs, but like talking to people out in Massachusetts and up in the Pacific Northwest, it's like they're definitely like, do we have enough work? Do we have enough projects? Do we have enough funding? Can we afford someone? Like everyone's just, there's a lot of like identity, like where are we? Is it needed? And I think that's the big question, like, is it needed? I think it's always needed, but like, is it needed enough to have someone paid to do the work, or are we doing what needs to happen with this volunteer?
That's interesting. So it's like, yeah, like maybe not every area is going to warrant like a funded crew. If a volunteer basis is going to cover it, it's going to be a lot easier to maintain a volunteer crew.
Yeah, and especially like in the rebolting space, we're Salt Lake is a huge city. USA Climbing's there, and so it's kind of this like little bit of center of climbing right now, and we have the brands. Like it kind of makes sense to have a rebolting thing like this. Others like, yeah, I think the volunteer model can work well for sure. Um, if there's not that much of a need. Um, but kind of, I guess what we're all concerned is if, accidents start happening. Um, we when we were a volunteer, um, before my time, it was like WARI, the Wasatch Anchor Replacement Initiative. Big volunteer day, people going out, friends of friends, people showing up, rebolting the cliff, putting in glue-ins. Someone installed the glue-in bolt, but forgot the glue. That bolt pulled out. Luckily, no one got hurt. There's another, I think, incident up north where someone rebolted a route with glue-ins. The glue didn't mix correctly. Someone climbed it the next day, got to the anchor, weighted the anchor, all the bolts pulled out. So like there's these like little micro instances with like quality control and making sure that like everyone knows what's going on, they're doing the thing correctly. And I think volunteer model can work on a smaller scale just as long as everyone knows what's going on. Because if an accident happens out east, we're affected. And then the whole system might come down. And so one thing that I've been trying to do is encourage people to have a little bit more quality control, a little bit more worker safety to avoid any of these things, because they're all avoidable. It just takes time and training and oversight.
And the price is larger than just the person who gets injured on the route that wasn't properly bolted. it's a wider spread issue.
Yeah. Because the whole thing right now is insurance. Like it's a big question mark in this space. If we go out and rebolt something and I don't install the glue and someone gets hurt, what is that going to look like? And then now our insurance is skyrocketed. And then the Climbing Coalition in Boulder, who has the same insurer, is their insurance going to skyrocket
wow,
too?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's probably not that many insurance companies that are offering that kind of
Oh
insurance.
no,
Yeah.
it's kind of Wild West.
Yeah. Can someone's, if I get injured on a route because a bolt pulled, could I literally seek legal action against the person who established that bolt?
I don't know.
That's wild. Like you just like some vindictive fucker like goes to Mountain Project, looks up the first incent, and is just like, I'm gonna sue this guy.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
And that's the question.
Has that happened?
Not to my knowledge.
Man, that's wild. That would be a dark day if that ever happens.
And I think that comes back to like the first ascensionist, like not letting me rebolt the route is like
someone might come after you.
And so like, you know, luckily in some states there's these liability statutes that like if you're recreating on land and someone's not charging you, like if you get hurt, like you're not going to sue the landowner.
Okay.
Kind of thing,
yeah, you can't
but,
sue the government because you broke your ankle on a rock in wilderness.
Totally.
Yeah.
But like, you know, these are just big question marks and no one knows. And some people are playing it really close, like to the chest of like, we're not even going to mess with this stuff because there's too much liability, or like, you know, stick out her neck and try to figure it out.
Yeah, these are some of the interesting questions that come up when you think about climbing, scaling like really large. Because I mean, we've seen like massive growth between like 70s, 80s, 90s, and now, but I mean, it's not going to stop. We're going exponential in the other direction, and there's benefits, and just like this, there's some really negative sides to it as well that we're all going to have to deal with as time progresses.
Like, when was the last time you signed a waiver at a climbing gym?
Every time I go.
Huge.
Yeah, it's like 5 pages.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah, I probably gave away 5 children that I don't have.
Yeah. and so like, I just feel like these things are just getting longer and longer, and these insurance companies are just like, you know, we all know how the insurance, you know, world is now. It's just like maximum profit, and like, it's uncharted territory.
Wow, that's crazy. That's wild.
So I think that's kind of why we try to have everything buttoned up as much as possible, as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, that circles back down even to just what we talked about in the beginning in terms of just like what we can do as a community in terms of like how we come to the table with these areas and how we treat these areas. And it's prevention. It's not like fuck around and find out. It's let's stay squeaky clean now so we can mitigate the damage that's going to occur regardless of how we act, because it's just a matter of scalability. Yeah, it's wild. We all bear a lot of responsibility. Yeah. A little bit more on the LCO point. Like, I think it could probably be people who are like, a lot of people probably don't even know about LCOs. They probably just like climb. They're just like, oh yeah, bolts, great. Do you guys have volunteers for your area? Or is it like, there's probably volunteers that are involved in what you guys do too, right?
Yeah, like our board of directors are all volunteers, and then we have event volunteers. They'll show up and help put on events for us. People show up, do trail work, and pull weeds.
Basically, yeah. I guess what I'm alluding to is like, how important is that? And like, should anybody listening, like, I could think it would be easy to just be like, oh, other people are doing it. I'm good. Like. Maybe advocate a little bit to just how important like being involved in your community is, and like joining the LCOs or trying to do your part, offer something like, yeah, how important is that?
Yeah, no, 100% important, because like, yeah, we have our gym, but I'm gonna assume most people who are climbing have a gym membership. We pay our gym membership, we do that, but then we go to the outdoors, and essentially it's free. You know, we have all our gear, we have our car, our gas, our park pass, but we go out and do the thing. And yeah, it really takes a lot to do the work. to do the trail work, to do the bolt maintenance. Like for a year of bolt maintenance, it's like $120K between labor, insurance, and materials. And then like a trail project is like $30,000 for 5 weeks. So it's not nothing. And so, and a lot of these grants work in different ways, whether that's like matched in labor or volunteer or in kind and all this stuff. And so, I think there's different ways people can like show up or give back. If you don't have the time, giving back financially, like at the end of the day, like that helps out so much because everyone's fighting for money. Giving back financially to, I think, both your local LCO and then the Access Fund. Like, the SLCA, we have our own membership platform. The Access Fund has theirs. We also have a joint membership, but giving to both, where you climb, but also the national. Showing up, if you can't give money, but you can give time, showing up to these volunteer events are huge. Pulling weeds, picking up trash, digging trenches, helping out with trails, because some of these grants, like we can allocate your time as a match for these grants.
Oh, cool.
And so that goes a long way. So it's like, I forget what it is, but like 25, if you work an hour, that's like $25 worth of match. So then that can go ways. But also like too, like if you can't do that, if you can't give your time, if you can't offer financial support, I think showing up at the crag and just being a good human, being a good steward. If you see something, say something. And even like if you know how to get rid of a worn quick link on an anchor to replace it, huge. If you know how to tighten up a loose bolt, huge. Like if everyone is just doing these little things here and there, or even like I know there's not much like bushwhacking out. Well, there's bushwhacking out here, but like if you're going to the crag and the crag's overgrown in the spring, if you have like some nippers and you kind of clear that, and if everyone
just
did that,
little tiny micro efforts,
like then that gives the LCOs, the people that are experts in the space, to focus on the bigger projects rather than these little things that are just like taking a lot of time.
Yeah. That's cool. And that would end up like preventing bigger projects from happening in the first place if you maintain rather than waiting for it to become an issue.
Totally. And I think too, like lay managers see that, like these people care, they show up. And I think that's the image that I think, as a user group is a good thing to show. And like all about being punk, all about doing our thing. We can be rowdy, but like cleaning up our room at the end of the day.
Leave it better than you. What is the phrase? Leave it better than you showed up, or something like that. I'm butchering it. Before we get back to it, if you've been listening to the show, you probably know how much time and effort and love I put into this project. The research, the conversations, the production, the editing, all of it. And while it might seem like I've got a team of people on this project, I don't. It's just me. And even with sponsors, I spend a large amount of my own personal money on this project simply because I love it. If you're a listener that's looking for a way to give back to the show in a meaningful way, please become a Patreon subscriber. Once you become a supporting member of the Climbing Majority, not only will you feel really good about yourself, but you'll also get access to the ad-free version of the show and exclusive content. If this speaks to you, click the link in the description or go to patreon.com/theclimbingmajoritypodcast to become a supporting member of the show today. For yourself, like what, I think that it seems like the rebolting work can be a bit controversial in certain areas. I would imagine in certain areas, it's kind of like the benefits maybe go unseen a little bit. Have you experienced that? And if so, like basically what's your passion? Like why is this such a passion for you? I would imagine, you could do anything you want, you're a skilled individual. Like what about what you choose to do every day with this advocacy and bolting? Like, why is it driving you to do what you do?
Yeah. I guess like kind of go into like the unnoticed of the work. I was kind of joking with a friend the other day, and I actually kind of meant this. We were talking about drywall in a house, and like it's one thing you don't really notice when it's done well, and like it's kind of hard to do drywall really well, but that it's seamless, it's unnoticeable, and I think like I'm kind of flattered when someone shows up to a crag that we just rebolted and they didn't notice anything, because it's like things are in place. They're not noticing all this tad, and it's just like it looks good. So it's well put together. So I actually kind of take that as a compliment a little bit. And yeah, you know, a lot of times it is thankless. We do get a lot of comments from the community of like, I climbed there 1 week, came back the next week, and it was all done. Like, thank you. And like, that means so much to us. But at the end of the day, like, it is my job. I'm getting paid to do this. I'm not going out there like 99% of the people out there rebolting, like they're not getting paid. So I realize like how fortunate I am in that space. And so, um, just that being said, you know, I am getting paid and it is my job. But yeah, it's, you know, I've found that climbing has given me so much in my life. It's when I found climbing and got involved in the culture and started traveling and meeting people at the crag, and like today at the Black Corridor, just like people from Minnesota, people from California, you know, it's just like an array of people and everyone's psyched. Everyone's having fun. And like that just brings so much joy just to be a part of this community where people are just traveling and just like it's snowing back at home and now it's 80 degrees, you know, and it to be a part of this group of people enjoying these public lands in a wacky way. Climbing doesn't make sense. It's arbitrary. It's stupid, but it gives meaning. And if I can make the smallest dent in a positive way, like I think that just kind of keeps me going. And I know like if I leave, someone else will take my job and probably do it better. Awesome. But I think it's just like, how can we keep kind of pushing the envelope? Because I'm standing on people who are pushing the envelope before me. And it's just like, I want to do better. But yeah, you know, sometimes I wonder like if I move somewhere, like what else would I do? I don't know. No. Oh, I would figure it out, but
What does the future look like for you?
for me, yeah, I just want to climb as long as I can. You know, being close to 40, I want to go down to Patagonia, like El Chalten. I'd love to climb down there sometime. Yeah, when I get older, just climb in Greece. That sounds great. Live on a sailboat and eat shellfish.
I like that vision.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I'm still rambunctious. I'm still like feeling energetic, and I want to get a lot of the harder objectives out of the way before I can kind of throw in the towel and just like chill, climb tufas and stalactites.
Yeah, I guess we haven't really talked too much about like yourself as a climber. Round yourself out a little bit. Like, what are some of your proudest objectives? What do you love? What's like what fuels your fire for climbing?
Yeah. I mean, I lived outside of Yosemite for a long time, and so I climbed in the valley a shit ton. Half Dome, you know, a few times, and done some of the big walls and some of the free routes. Lived in the Eastern Sierras, so climbed, you know, the Hulk a whole bunch, and like out in like Temple Crag and all those things. And at some point, it's like I want to climb stronger, so I started sport climbing a little bit more and kind of got that bug. Which, you know, kind of went down to Cuba last year. And so just kind of trying to take it all in. But, you know, one day I'll be sport climbing. The next day I'll be climbing trad routes in Little Cotton Canyon, going up to the winds. And so put on a lot of different hats. I like it all, but being in the mountains is great. I think like where my heart lies right now is probably hard multi-pitch sport climbing with more bolts than trad gear. I think that's where it kind of lies right now.
If you heard of my like pillars of climbing that I ask people,
I think I have, but remind me.
performance, adventure, partnerships, and then I've like thrown spirituality in there. Not a lot of people have bid on that one, but like I attribute it to like the outdoors is my church. I've heard people say that, so that's what I mean by spirituality. So like in terms of what you drive meaning for in climbing, like rank those in order of importance.
Can you say those again?
Performance, adventure, partnerships, and spirituality.
Partnership, number one for sure. Being able to live through some pretty intense experiences with other humans and seeing that like range of emotion, like just so stripped down to like so raw. And I think especially with like male partnership, you know, a lot of men kind of keep things in, and I've seen raw stuff, and I've been super raw, and I love that for people, especially male partnership. Adventure. I think that bleeds into the partnership side of things, experiencing things with good friends and being committed. Did my plan work? Am I ready? You know, are we going to do it? You know, the build up the anxiety going into something and then walking off like, wow, we did that. Or walking away with your tail between your legs and like, what do I need to do better? Seeing the world is, you know, this world is a great place to explore. And I think climbing is like the perfect avenue to see it. And then, you know, I think performance, well, not, I can probably say like the spirituality for sure. You know, Mother Nature is like, I'm not a religious person, but like being out in nature is the closest, what I consider to be closest to God, whatever that is. You know, just the micro moments, a sunset, a flower, a sip of water, you know, a spring. You know, these moments come randomly, and yeah. And I guess the performance, yeah, I get sucked into the performance side of things often, but it's if I'm not performing, like I think I've gotten over that. The older I get, it's like, okay, like I know where I'm at. I can probably get a little better, but I'm not gonna like kick and scream because there's plenty of really good 510s out there. You know, if I can no longer climb 512, 513, just 510 is great. Even 5.8. Even 5.5.
Yeah. Yeah. The adventure part of it, I think, is so critical. That's why I climb.
Yeah, the adventure.
Yeah, adventure. Mm-hmm.
What and with your partnerships.
Partnerships are huge too. It's so tough. Like, it's almost like you can't have one without the other. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're out there, like, I guess partnerships, because you could like rope solo, I guess, you know, you could lead rope solo and like go have an adventure without a partnership, but like I would never sign up for that.
It sounds so lonely.
Yeah. I think partnerships is like, it's integral to the experience. And you're like having an adventure with somebody.
Because I'm sure you have your friends, if you're like, ooh, I want to do this big objective, like you have like the few people in your Rolodex.
For sure. And I've actually been blessed in that way where I always have like a go-to climbing partner. I've never had lots, but I've never not had a key climbing partner. And yeah, I mean, the partnership has been, especially this most recent one that I've been climbing with Bryce for the last like year and a half, 2 years, has been just instrumental to both of our growths. The amount of trust that we have in each other to try hard and to support each other and to trust that like we're both not going to lose our shit and we can be in risky situations, and like there's a sense of like calmness in the storm when you can rely on somebody like that in those situations. That's so valuable. And from what I've heard, actually, it's sad how rare that is. I feel, that's why I say I feel blessed to have it, because I've come across so many people that struggle with partnerships. And that sucks.
Yeah. And I think like, I can't remember who said it, but there's a famous quote out there. It's just like, I came for the climbing and I stayed for the partnership or the community. I know, like some of my climbing partners, like it kind of feels like a romantic relationship without the like they just know so much about.
Yeah, it's intimate.
It's very intimate.
Yeah. And I mean, hell, like especially with these longer multi-pitch, like I was telling Hannah, like I have deep conversations with my partners out in the mountains, like family trauma, like family politics, like past fuck ups in your personal life, like things that make us who we are. But like you don't just randomly talk to strangers about that kind of stuff. Like sometimes it takes years to spill this kind of stuff, but something about the mountains and the time with that person and the trust that you have, like it just, you start talking about this stuff. At least I do.
Yeah, I think like you're entering this space that you're in. I think naturally you're vulnerable in, because like Mother Nature always wins, and we're a guest, and we're gonna get in and get out, and like hopefully everything goes well. And so I think that just maybe opens up the door to let that vulnerability come out a little bit more.
Yeah, it makes for a stronger partnership too.
I think it does. It does.
Hey, I've been again blessed enough to not have almost zero like bad partnership experiences. I've never had to like blacklist anybody.
Yeah, I've had a few like that was great.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'll call you again.
exactly. But it wasn't like, yeah, tell everybody, red alert, like don't climb with this person kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I think that comes down to just like compatibility.
100%.
Again, like you said, it's almost weird how it's like a romantic relationship. It's like compatibility comes in. It's like skill sets might align, but like personality, climbing history, personal history, like all these things have to line up to create this like magical experience that you end up having in the mountains. And when you find that person, you do your best to keep on that going.
My red flag is if all they want to do is talk about climbing.
Yes, dude. Yes. Don't even get me started. That is the worst, dude. That's the worst.
Like we're doing it. Let's talk about something else, man.
Yeah, amen, dude. I mean, fuck, if anybody's listening, take that to heart, please, because like, yeah, that's one of my pet peeves. If like all you can talk about is climbing, it's not going to last long. Like you got to have depth as a human. You got to be able to like, I don't know. I'm very introspective and like, I like to think philosophical, like analyze my life, like ask the bigger questions, like, cause how else are you supposed to grow? Yeah. There's only so much you can spray beta and talk about climbing. It gets old pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Young climbers.
Yeah. Stoke is real.
Yeah. Stoke is real. Yeah. I'm sure I was like that too.
Well, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, fuck, I feel like we could, talk for several more hours about your climbing history and the things you've done. But maybe we'll save that for part 2. Yeah. Where can people follow your story? Where can people learn more about you? Where can people get involved if they're listening to this and this is the first time they're hearing about the SCLA? Like, where can people go?
Yeah. Like I'm not too much on the social medias, but yeah, I would say if you're kind of curious about what the SLCA does, is following that on Instagram, or I'm always writing news blogs about our stuff, and we have a film coming out, which I showed you, he's calling it Fix Points, from Camp 4, their last intern. And so, I think just following the SLCA, and you'll probably find a way to me through that if you dive deep enough on the Instagrams.
Yeah. When is the film coming out?
We're doing a premiere on April 29th. Okay. It's going to be at a local brewery. Yeah. yeah, just talking about kind of this conversation, but more distilled. And I think, yeah, get a little vulnerable in there, and I think that's good.
Cool. Yeah. Once this will go out before that, but once the film is out and this episode is out, I'll go back in the show notes and like add the link to the film,
Cool.
so people can check it out.
Yeah, I think we'll be on. Yeah, I'll. Yeah, we're not quite sure how that's gonna kind of flow out.
YouTube, Vimeo, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be on the intern's YouTube probably. The guy that filmed it.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this before, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again.
Totally.
Appreciate
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Of course.